There was a real betrayal from lack of transparency in many ways, and then another betrayal that I later learned of as time went on. So, what happened there was multiple layers of shock. This is what taught me some different aspects of forgiveness is when there's that shock to the nervous system, we got to thaw out first. I call it an unravel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Voices of Peace Personal Forgiveness, a podcast of hope where forgiveness and political forgiveness intersect to create a better world. This season's podcast will focus on personal forgiveness in our daily lives, and I'm very excited to have Fred Luskin as my co host this season. Many of our guests will share their personal stories of forgiveness, their struggles, and how they overcame these obstacles. Other guests may not have been able to forgive and will share their stories of where they got stuck. And for those who may want help, my co host and I will be giving live coaching. Our guest today is Lisa Angelini, a holistic psychotherapist and life coach. As a licensed psychotherapist, Lisa uses a unique combination of Western techniques and the universal spiritual wisdom and teachings of the shamans. She also knows something about heartbreak and relationships, having dealt with painful ones in her own life, including a very disorienting heartbreak and unexpected abandonment. In pursuit of her own healing, Lisa has learned a lot about forgiveness and talks about authentic forgiveness unfolding in layers. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you both.
Lisa, I remember looking at your website and you had this wonderful quote by Rumi. Your task is not to seek love, but merely to find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. This is such a beautiful quote, and I suspect there is a reason that you've posted it there, perhaps related to your story. And I know you were a single mom raising two kids who are now adults. You've gone through a contentious divorce 20 years ago, and more recently, an unexpected abandonment. Can you share with us your journey through those painful moments, where it has taken you, and what opened you up to forgiveness?
Yeah. Wow. Let's unravel that a little bit. Back to the quote. Yes, of course, that did play a piece in the journey when I realized how I had blocked myself off to receiving not only romantic love, but connection with others because of protecting myself from having been really hurt. And so there was an issue with trust, not only with other people, but trust of myself. And now I'm referring to the divorce back many years ago. And how I got that information was I was sitting with a friend and she said to me, I don't know who you are. And at the time, I thought I was an open book. And I think at that time, I was just this Italian girl from New York that was that kind of open, big personality and all of that. And that's very different from being truly authentic and open-hearted. And she said, you have so many walls. They're like brick walls with barbed wire, she said.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm remembering this conversation as I'm talking about it. I can take myself back there in my mind all those years ago. And she said, you have to let someone in. Then the journey of therapy began, which unfolded in many different ways and many different modalities over years. But in healing that and doing the work of true forgiveness, which took some time, and in that situation happened over and over again because it was not just the situation with myself I had to heal, then it was the journey of co-parenting and all the bumps and bruises there through the years that I had to forgive over and over again, even when I felt I had to forgive regarding the children and that relationship there.
So if I'm hearing you, somebody gave you information and you had the grace to take it in.
Or did you take it in right away?
I questioned it. I am much better now all these years later. But at the time, I was curious, so I would sit with it. And I'm not sure I really knew what it meant at the time.
Because so often when we're dealing with these painful moments in our lives, the last thing we want to hear from someone is maybe you should look at this differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was sharing it with Fred in a conversation we had yesterday. I think you were in that group, Fred, where my grandfather and grandmother divorced unexpectedly back when I was 9 years old. And my grandmother held on to that resentment for a long time. And there was a lot of negative reference there. And I watched her not be able to do it. And I've never really been modeled that by anyone in the family, what true forgiveness looks like. And in that process, when I was working through it, I finally had to say to people, I don't want to hear anything negative about him. I don't want to hear that. I'm letting that go. I'm healing. That's the father of my children, and I'm going to leave it at that as I work through this. People think it's supportive to keep that energy going and to add fuel to the fire. And to me, it was a constant reminder of all the things and all the hurt that I no longer wanted to be connected to.
You didn't have modeling for forgiveness, but you certainly had modeling for what it looks like when there's unforgiveness, and you did
Yes.
not want that.
Yes, and it's so interesting because both my grandmothers were very different. One, my father's mother was, oh my goodness, I've never known a loving person like that. Very forgiving, very sweet, very spiritual. And then my mom's mom, the one that had the divorce where there was the betrayal, she was fiery, really fiery. But I looked at that as so powerful. To me, her go get it attitude that she had to do to go out and work and maybe one of the first ladies to wear pants. I looked at that as, yeah, that feels good right there. The other at the time, and now she's a great teacher, even though she's no longer here, my dad's mom, I looked at that more as a weakness than a
Wow.
source of true power.
Well, you seem to have, in a sense, really two good role models, role modeling different things and getting you to think about, okay, what does real power look like? Even though there's this fiery stuff that we do possibly need in the beginning, there's something else going on too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can take pieces, right, from each of those gifts that we get from when we have good grandparents. Like we could
Mhm.
take those gifts and look at, okay, how can I use this fire in a different way? How can I create with it instead of destroy?
Is there an illustrative story that you could tell of your own personal experience of being hurt and having to confront your own closeness and your own growth?
Yeah. The most recent one, which was a couple of years ago in this relationship that I was in, I'm labeling it sudden disorienting heartbreak because it was completely unexpected.
Ooh.
And yeah, the short story would be he took a hard left turn, like unexpected, out of the blue, and it changed
Wow.
my life direction. It
Hey,
changed everything and toppled everything upside down. So there was betrayal themes and shock and yeah, nervous system dysregulation to the max.
but tell us what happened with this left turn.
Left turn was basically the notice was a couple lines of text, and that was it.
Can you tell a little bit of the backstory of the relationship and tell us a little bit about the relationship and the involvement of it because you loved this person.
Yeah.
Sounds like. And then what happened?
There's a book coming. As I write this book, I'm very protective of this other person and their own private information. But basically, it started out as a lovely, beautiful, soul connected relationship. And then it changed. And it just changed in ways that I wouldn't expect. Things that started to happen that I was in disagreement with, that I wouldn't have signed up for, behaviors and actions that were questionable. So this one took me by surprise. It's so interesting because I remember doing work with my therapist to get ready for the relationship because I hadn't had one in a while. I was very happily single, and this man came into my life unexpectedly, meeting on a marketing training online when I was not looking, when I was in surrender mode from having had an injury at the time. And then he came. And I thought, oh my goodness, wow, everything's lining up. But at first, I didn't think that. I did all the things because I'm a cop's daughter and I'm a therapist. So I'm like, oh, it's checking out. Okay. So it was this beautiful relationship. And also, it involved my spiritual home, which is Scotland, where he happened to live. And I was like, oh my gosh, the universe is really lining up. Look what happens when you surrender. When things were progressing over a couple of years, I thought, yeah, I'm going to get to live there. Oh my gosh. Wow. Like, how could this really be happening? Oh my goodness. And then when it all fell apart unexpectedly, seemingly in a snap of a finger, there were some signs, but because we spent months together at a time and months apart, sometimes I just thought, when I get back there next, I'll check things out and see how things are.
So you were planning on moving to Scotland then?
Yes. So talk about flip in life direction. I am not a big fan of the desert. I don't like heat. And that has been a place that I've considered my spiritual home for about 25 years. So I never knew the how of getting there. And I wasn't looking for it through a partner.
Right.
So when he took this hard left turn and ended the relationship, I was in shock. Betrayal themes, dishonesty.
Why betrayal? Was it just betrayal of your dream, or was there a real betrayal?
There was a real betrayal from lack of transparency in many ways, and then another betrayal that I later learned of as time went on. So what happened there was multiple layers of shock. This is what taught me some different aspects of forgiveness is when there's that shock to the nervous system, we got to thaw out first. We have to thaw out. I call it an unravel. And my friends always come back to me and go, come on, you took 2 days off of work and you were working, you were doing good work. You didn't like unravel. You weren't with the ice cream in front of the TV. You weren't in bed. It wasn't that because I have skills and I've worked on myself enough. But when I wasn't working, there was an awful lot of staring at the wall, watching TV, but not really watching it. And I kept finding more and more things. I eventually had to stop looking for the things because that was another piece of my therapy work was me trying to keep myself safe by finding out the cause and the realities of things was keeping me stuck in this constant level of being in shock.
So did you think he was like the one and that you had a real future together?
Yes.
And all of a sudden you find out that's a complete daydream and you didn't actually know him?
I believe it's more that he changed. That was a very powerful piece of my therapy work.
That's difficult. That is really
Yes.
difficult.
Yes, such a beautiful man, beautiful soul. And it was a lot. And members of his family had to go through their own grieving process of this change. It was the kind of thing where I was saying, whose life is this? This drama, this stuff, this is not my life. This is not how I do things. In fact, instead of having written a self-help book about this, if I want to make it into characters, this could be a really good fictional novel based on the truth that nobody would have to know.
Right.
It would probably sell better than the self-help book will.
Well, and it could be very powerful. So, don't underestimate it because so many people can relate to these kinds of stories, that so many people have been betrayed.
How did forgiveness come into this?
It took a lot of therapy first to thaw out from the shock and first to learn how to trust myself again, which is really what I inevitably ended up writing about because I felt really shaken and I'm pretty damn solid typically. And so it was definitely that analogy of the rug, like feet in the air, slamming your head and everything else. And working with my therapist in one of the deeper sessions and working with internal family systems therapy, like, what did I miss here? Because that was the big piece of the hypervigilance and the trying to figure it out, because that's what we do when we have sudden disorienting heartbreak or experiences like this. We're trying to make sense of things. We want to figure it out. And I was like, what did I miss? Like, how could I have missed this? Especially as somebody that's trained in all of these things. How did I miss this?
You just made an important point there that even those of us that are really trained in this work are vulnerable to all these things. And when it happens to us personally, we go through the same kinds of disorientation and feelings like anyone else. We're not any better at it.
In some ways, I feel like it's a false sense of invulnerability. That's how I felt. I went into this relationship thinking there's nothing that could shake me. And if it doesn't work out, I will be completely fine, And that was a reality check. And that was a false sense of invulnerability, thinking because I have this spiritual foundation and I've done this work and I know the clinical pieces and I know everything and I'm the cop's daughter that watches. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter on one hand, and on
Wow.
another hand, which I'm sure you're going to be telling us, we do have the skills and we can learn the skills to get us to the other side. So go ahead with your story.
First, I had to let myself grieve and experience that messy middle, I like to call it. My spiritual teacher would say, where are you located? Are you in your ego mind? Or are you in your higher self? And I'm like, ego, ego, ego. And I would continue to try to shift to my higher mind. And I remember some of my spiritual colleagues saying how, oh, this grief process is so beautiful to watch, which of course I liked to hear. And then I realized that was keeping me stuck from actually going through that messy middle.
Right.
Well, nobody has their life turned upside down without unbelievable disruption. But it sounds to me like you thought that your spiritual practice and your therapy would protect you from life. And it was like another form of defensiveness. And I would just love to hear if and how you drop some of that.
Well, I started realizing that I was using that. I wrote a blog post about this, forgiveness as a weapon against yourself, because I was trying to just go there too quickly. And I know this, and I know it takes time, but because all these years have passed and I considered myself, I could do it. And that was not the case. Anger's never been a strong thing for me. It never has been, but I had to allow myself to go there. And it was a mentor of mine that said, you're angry. I'm like, I'm not angry. I don't get angry. I'm crushed, but I'm not angry. And he gave me a process to do over a few days. And he said, if the FUs come, just allow them. And they came out of my mouth. After I did the process, he told me for about 3 days. Oh, wow. I was like, oh, it is there. Oh my goodness. And I let it out and then continued the journey. And it took a while to get there. And not the anger, I seem to release pretty quickly. And I think with grief, when we go through grief, when we go through shock, when we have to forgive someone, it is layers.
Right.
Things happen, you come up with anniversaries and memories and things, and you work through them. But to me, it's like, how do I know when I'm there is I feel free.
Right, right. And the other point here is that you can't skip any steps. You can't just go to forgiveness. You've got to work through that anger. You've got to
Absolutely.
deal with the grief, and grief is not easy to deal with. None of this is. But for those who are honest with themselves, and I just really love your honesty about what you had to go through. When
Yeah.
we're honest and we go through these steps, that's where forgiveness isn't just a pragmatic thing of letting go emotional burden. It can become transformational.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because there's the freedom. And then I think when we can get to that point where we truly wish the other person well,
Mm-hmm.
and that part where we never have to talk to them,
Right.
sometimes we're not given the opportunity anyway, as I wasn't, to wrap things up in a pretty box, because that's the way I like to do things. That's how I'm trained. If you have a problem and you want to end a relationship or a friendship, you have a conversation. You talk about it, you tie it up in a pretty box. So we don't always get that when it comes to relationships.
Right.
So what did it sound like when inside your head you had forgiven him?
More quiet than anything. More quiet, like calm, definitely much less thought.
Good.
He was always there, always there, always there, and then as time goes on, it was like less there, less there, less there. And then, of course, when you're writing about it, that for the beginning periods of writing, I was like, oh, for God's sakes, why am I doing this? Why am I writing a book to help other people? Can't I just leave this alone? And then it was like, no, no, you need to write this. And later I realized, hopefully this doesn't sound too woo-woo, but I really believe this relationship was about writing the book for other people to heal. Because if somebody, not that I'm special, but if somebody like me with all my training and experience can go through that level of devastation, certainly anybody can. And I think it helps to know, wow, if she could go through this, then so can I. And I can also recover. I can also forgive. I can also get my life back, and I can also open my heart in bigger ways than I have before.
It's almost like a karmic path that we all have these experiences, and if we use them and learn from them, and
Yeah.
then we can really help to give others something. Well, who loves going through these things? But when you
Mm.
get to the other side, when you really stick with it, then you look back and you realize there was a gem there that is priceless. So, what
Mhm.
was that for you? What is your life now like because of it?
Definitely a deeper connection with my
Mm.
soul self than I had before. When you go through something like this, and then you can realize I'm so much more, we're all so much more than this
Mm.
body, than these emotions. We're always going to have those parts of ourselves, the younger parts, the parts that from this situation tap into earlier situations that we need to be aware of and heal so that we can come to the place of true forgiveness. And I believe when I'm in that space, it's definitely changed my outlook on a lot of things and has helped me to help other people in different ways than I did before.
I hear this need for all of us to just have the humility that we're human beings and there's things we're going to struggle with, and people can do things that are shocking, and that there's a place in us that if we're lucky and good, we end up being at peace with it. But that humility piece of recognizing that it may happen anyway, no matter how good we are or whatever, and that we're going to have to dig in to find something in us that's deeper than that.
Absolutely. And I think when we get to that place, we can realize, I'll just use this case. If he could have done better, I think he would have done
Mhm.
better, you
Absolutely.
know?
Right.
And you see, what's so beautiful about what you're saying is that you've totally accepted that.
Hmm.
And that's so hard for a lot of people who have been wounded or hurt, still caught up in revenge. We can't accept the fact that we are all human, that we're all trying to do the very best we can, given who we are and what our experiences are. And when we can do that, that's when we're learning about unconditional love. And for me, I've said this so many times, forgiveness is the highest form of love. When you can get there, that is true peace.
No, and the only thing I'd want to add to broaden this is the three of us are teachers, and almost everyone we meet who has a forgiveness issue thought that it wouldn't happen to them. And
Right.
that why do bad things happen to good people? That's the endless human question. And what I hear powerfully in your story is you've tried to look at that face on, like not run from that. Like, hey, I did all the right things. I'm spiritual. I'm a therapist. I prepared myself. And yet, even I wasn't ready for this. And that's a powerful lesson.
Mm.
Hmm. And it just shows how humble you really are.
Thank you. And this has been definitely a stretch for me. I had to do therapy to write the book, hypnotherapy with a colleague, because I'm very private and I had blank page paralysis forever. I always have to continue to connect myself to my purpose. It's how can I help? How can I serve? Knowing
Well,
that I am a fallible human being like everybody else. The other one thing I wanted to mention that I've seen in my work with others that tends to hang people up when it comes to forgiveness or even just healing in general is my story is really nothing compared to this over here, what someone else has had to forgive or what someone else has had to
mhm,
go through. But I think we sell ourselves short there when we each have our own heart pains. So if we work on ourselves, then we
mhm.
are going to have the ripple effect going forward. for others to experience their own healing.
You're right. Lisa, what would you like to leave this audience with?
Just to lean into the difficult parts. Don't worry about getting messy. It's okay. Let people hold you up. Use the support system. And if you don't have that support system, ask. And I really do believe that this work of forgiveness is the key to happiness and freedom. It just doesn't feel like it in the beginning, because when someone's
Right.
hurt that deeply, it's like, oh, how could I ever forgive? Or how could you forgive that? Well, the option is not good
Yeah.
not to.
And we have to remember life is messy, like it or
Sure
not.
is.
Human
Very messy.
experience. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do
My
that?
website is the best. It's lisaangelini.com. And I'm also on social, on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me there too. I post mental health posts and information around those types of issues.
Wonderful blog. I've been reading
Thank
it.
you.
Really nice. Fred, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your story and just opening your heart to us and the words of wisdom that you've been able to share, which I know is going to really help our audience.
My honor, my pleasure.
And Fred, it's always so much fun as co-host with you. It's been a great experience.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, may forgiveness always be in your heart. Thank you for listening to Voices of Peace, Personal Forgiveness, where I hope you were inspired by the stories you heard of those practicing forgiveness in their daily lives and how this can help in creating social change. If you know of anyone who would benefit from hearing this episode, please share it. For more information on political forgiveness, you can go to my website, drborris.com, where you can find the latest information on political forgiveness, as well as sign up for the newsletter. And please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.